Hello everyone and welcome to Blaque Noire Sisterhood. As you know, this channel is all about focusing on empowerment and the wellness of Black women and women of colour alike. So I'd like to wish you all a very happy new year. It's the first episode of 2025 and I'm a little bit late as it's almost the end of January, but it is what it is, right? So today I will be talking about something that I feel is essential for our wellness and self-growth, and that is setting boundaries. So I'm going to be covering what boundaries are, how to set them, why they're necessary for personal growth and health, and I'll also tell you a little bit about my own personal experiences when it comes to setting boundaries. What are boundaries and why do they matter? So a boundary, or a personal boundary, could be described as a set of limits or rules, if you will, that we set ourselves to help us identify what's safe, reasonable and acceptable for others to do around you. So boundaries can help protect our peace, time and energy by helping prioritize our needs, how we express ourselves, and help create healthy relationships. Not setting boundaries can potentially put us at risk for unhealthy relations, being overworked, and seriously affect both our mental health and also our well-being. Okay, so I want to spend a little bit of time and tell you about my own personal struggles with setting boundaries. To be completely honest, I've always had a little bit of difficulty in this area. I mean, on multiple occasions, I've agreed to do things that I don't really want to do, mainly because it makes things easier for others, right? And all that's ended up doing was leaving me feeling drained, undervalued, as it would become a regular occurrence, as I would always be expected to do something. And it made me feel like, truthfully, a lot of people don't really have any respect for me. So I want to tell you a little story about the most recent boundary that I've put in place with a friend that I've known for years. So I used to work with this lady for about 5 years, and we became really good friends, so much so that we were constantly in communication with each other. We're texting, we're sending reels, memes, all that sort of stuff all the time, to the point where we even actually went on holiday together. And I remember one time during our friendship, I was telling her a little bit about my family, and I was telling her that one of my two brothers, he's initially a little more friendly and open than the other one. Now, the other one, he tends to just be a little bit more guarded when he meets people for the first time. Still a great guy, he's just a little bit more cautious than my other brother, which is, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everyone's different, right? But after telling her that, whenever I happened to mention my brother, she'd always refer to him in a way that I felt was derogatory. So it could be like, oh, you're mean brother, or you're not nice brother, you're rude brother, you're moody brother. And now, don't get me wrong, he could definitely be called so much worse. But I just found it really disrespectful of her to speak about my brother in that way, considering that I would never speak negatively to her about anyone that she's close to, a family member, anything like that. And she would also do little things like she'd make fun of my height because I'm pretty short. You know, she'd send me reels or memes making fun of my appearance or my weight, and it all, truthfully, it just made me feel really bad and actually really hurt my feelings. And she did this for years, and I'll be completely honest, I never said anything about it. It just kept building up and building up and building up inside me, until one day when I was just like, I've had enough. And being completely transparent, the way she was making me feel is something that I most definitely should have told her so much earlier on in our friendship, right? And basically, because I hadn't set that boundary from the beginning, from the first time when she said something that I didn't like, obviously she's got no idea, right? So she would continue to do it. And I would say in the last year, 2024, I started to feel, stronger in myself. That I could tell people a bit more exactly how I would feel about certain things. And I would tell her a number of times that, I don't like it when she would, say certain things about my brother, or when she would make fun out of me. But she would still continue to do it, right? So long story short, I basically decided that she isn't someone that I want to be in my life anymore, right? Because she doesn't make me feel good. And to be honest, I don't feel like I get any benefit from this friendship, as it would often leave me feeling very stressed and really insecure. So I'm no longer in contact with her. Whilst I won't lie, it was very difficult for me to come to this decision because we've known each other for so long. And if I'm also being honest, I felt a little bit mean just, to cut someone off in the way that I did. But it was necessary for me and my own personal health and my own growth. And sometimes, it is just that way, right? Sometimes. And I remember seeing on a podcast with, what was her name? Lala Anthony. I can't remember what podcast it was or who it was she was talking to, but I remember this specific part of it where she said that sometimes people don't realize it, but some friends come with an expiration date. And to be honest with you, that is so true. And it's really about realizing and accepting that and recognizing when the expiration date occurs. Okay, how to set boundaries. So it's all well and good saying we need to set boundaries, but how do you actually do it? It's often difficult to know where to start. So my personal suggestion is, truthfully, just start small, okay? So boundaries are necessary in every aspect of your life, whether that's from work, family, friends, or what have you. It's all about making an intentional decision to prevent any unnecessary stress and gain greater control over your life, okay? So some key things that might help you when setting your boundaries are that you set limits, communicate your boundaries from the start if you can, or as early as you recognize the need that there needs to be a boundary set, okay? Put your own personal needs first. Let your feelings be your guide. You don't need to apologize for setting a boundary or giving long explanations, okay? Remember, the word no is literally a complete sentence, okay? So my 3 steps, if you will, in terms of setting boundaries. So step number 1 is to acknowledge the feeling, acknowledge how you're feeling, acknowledge how a person or people or a situation is making you feel, and what it is that you want to change about that in order to make yourself feel better, okay? Step number 2, communicate. Just be clear about what your boundaries are. State what you need or what it is that you're requesting in as a direct way as possible. Do it in terms of what you would like rather than what you don't like or what it is that you don't want. So it'll be like, instead of saying, I don't want this, you'd be like, I'd really like it if X could happen. And it's important to keep this statement short and sweet. Try, to use passive language rather than placing blame on somebody else, because it'll be received much better by the other person that way. And step number 3 is you need to accept, okay? And what I mean by that is you need to accept that the person or people that you may be setting boundaries with may not initially receive it as well as you would like, especially, like in my instance, if you let things go on for, a prolonged period of time and then you're trying to introduce a new boundary. So you need to be prepared to accept any discomfort that may arise as a result, whether that be guilt or it could be shame or even remorse, okay? But the key thing to remember over all of that when it comes to you setting boundaries is that setting boundaries is a form of self-love and respect. Okay, question time. So I've got a couple of questions that I've received on this topic. So question number 1 comes in from a female who's 32, based in London, and she asks, how do I set boundaries at work without looking difficult or uncooperative? She goes on to say, as a Black woman in a corporate space, I already feel I have to work twice as hard. How do I set boundaries at work, like not answering emails after hours or working late without being seen as lazy or unprofessional? Okay, this is real. This is a good question. I mean, we all know, right, as terrible as it is, that Black women and women of colour in professional spaces are often expected to go above and beyond just to be seen as competent. But remember, You are not your job, and your worth isn't tied to you overworking. So, a few ways that I think you could possibly set some boundaries professionally, and a couple of that I've actually done myself, is, when being asked to do something which, may potentially take you past your, contracted working hours. I think a way in order to respond to this is to ensure that you frame it as efficiency as opposed to resistance. Okay, so instead of saying something like, oh, I don't work past 6 p.m., you could say something like, I can prioritize this during my office hours so that I can deliver, my best. Can't look at this until I am back in the office tomorrow morning, for example. And something that I've definitely done and continue to do is that I use my work calendar and also my email auto replies. So I set out my clear working hours in my calendar. I know you can definitely do that on Outlook. You can do it on like Gmail, like G Suite as well. And also within my email signature, I always have my office hours, my working hours, and then at the end of the day, I will then turn on my out of office auto reply with like a message like, oh, thank you, I'll be back in the office tomorrow at like 9 a.m. and I'll respond to your emails then. And something else I would recommend is to communicate as early and as often as possible. So, and by what that I mean is you can say something like, I'm happy to, look at this during my work hours, but I won't be available for emails after 6 p.m. Let's work together and schedule tasks accordingly. Something along those sorts of lines. But also something to remember is that, a workplace that respects, your personal boundaries and also like the work-life balance, is just generally a healthier working environment for everyone. And if that's something that they don't respect, then maybe they don't deserve you. Maybe it's time for you to move on somewhere else. Anyway, I hope that helps. I've got another question from a female 28 in Birmingham. She asks, what should I do if a friend keeps crossing my boundaries even after I've spoken to them about it? She goes on to say, I've made it clear that certain things make me uncomfortable, but my friend still does them anyway. I don't want to lose the friendship, but I'm starting to feel disrespected. What should I do? Sis, I hear you on this one, and hopefully, you've heard from my previous example of when I had to set a boundary with a friend quite recently. So basically, if you have communicated your boundaries clearly and they're still being crossed, in my personal opinion, that's not a mistake that your friend is making. That is a choice that your friend is making. A friend who repeatedly ignores you, ignores your needs, is showing you exactly how much they respect you, or, to be honest, how little they respect you. So a couple of things that you can do is you can try and reinforce your boundaries that you've already told this friend with like a firm action. So you could something along the lines of like, I have told you before that I don't feel comfortable with this, whatever it may be. If it happens again, I'll have to distance myself. Or you could reduce the access that this friend has to you if necessary. Like if they're not respecting your boundaries, you don't owe them unlimited access to your time and energy. Or eventually, if none of those things work, you might end up being like me, okay? And be willing to walk away, right? A true friendship, someone that cares for you respects your limits and your boundaries, okay? And if they can't, then you may just need to reevaluate the role that person plays in your life, okay? In my personal opinion, boundaries don't ruin friendships, okay? Disrespect does. So it's all about doing what is right to ensure that you are protecting your peace. Okay, I've got one last question from a female who is 45 in Derby. She asks, what's the best way to set boundaries with myself? I'm realizing that I don't just struggle with setting boundaries with people, I struggle with setting them for myself. I let bad habits slide, overwork myself, and don't prioritize self-care. How can I get better at holding myself accountable? Wow, this one seriously resonates with me, okay? Because this is something that I have, and I won't lie, I'm always very transparent with all of you, that I still continue to struggle with to this day, okay? So it's it's crazy how easy it is to hold others accountable, but it seems to be so much harder for us to hold ourselves accountable to the same standard. So as I've said so many times before, and so many times across my, Instagram profile, is that self boundaries are an act of self respect. Okay, and a couple ways that you could possibly get better at these is one, really define what your non-negotiables are. Okay, so what are things that you know you need to protect? Is it your peace? Is it sleep? Saying no to overworking, working out every day, whatever it is to you that is important, just ensure that you make that clear. Okay, and then treat your boundaries like appointments. Okay, put in, I don't know, self-care breaks, downtime, or hitting the gym, for example, like in your calendar, the same way that you would do like a meeting at work or an appointment. Okay, and treat it with the exact same level of importance. Okay, you are incredibly important. Okay, so you need to ensure that you remember that and live in that way. Okay, another thing to do is check in with yourself regularly. I do this, and I've recently done this myself. Where basically, just ask yourself, am I keeping my promises to myself? Right? Like, I've done that to myself recently. I'm sure you guys probably have seen on Instagram, if you follow me, that basically I'm turning 40 this year, right? And I really want to get in shape for turning 40. And one of the things that I promised myself was that I was going to work out at least 5 days a week. And to be honest with you, I haven't been doing that, right? So what I have recently done is basically just readjusted and recommitted myself without beating myself up about it. Okay, things happen, right? But it's really about just getting back on track and establishing just how important that this actually is to me, and ensuring that I do what I've promised myself. Okay, and do this without any self-judgment. Okay, it happens, right? And the last thing I can think of is use reminders or affirmations. Okay, just repeat yourself like three to five times, right, throughout the day. Like, something simple could be like, I don't know, I deserve to give myself the same love and care that I give to others. Something along those lines, or whatever it is that works for you. Okay, and at the end of the day, keeping promises to yourself, it builds self-trust. Okay, start small, just be consistent, and I'm sure you will see just how much it transforms your life. Okay, so that's a slightly longer episode today than normal, which I really hope that you've enjoyed and found useful. I know I've enjoyed doing this episode for you. And the key things that I want to leave with you as a takeaway is basically remember that setting boundaries is possibly the purest and most effective form of self-love, self-care, and self-respect. Okay, so I really do encourage you all to reflect on the different aspects of your life and identify some of the areas where you feel you may need to set stronger boundaries. Let us know in the comments what some of your own personal boundaries are, or tell us about a time where you've set a boundary with others and how that's worked out for you. And, if you have any questions or anything on this topic or another topic that you would like to see me cover, please do let me know in the comments, or you can email me at hello@blaquenoire.com. But as always, like, comment and subscribe to our Blaque Noire channel. And if you're not already, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at @blaque_noire. And the deets will be in the show notes below. And that's about it. Bye for now.